Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Destiny and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we're going to go ahead and start working with making addresses defaults, and this one is going to be pretty fun and cool. So you want to see more videos like this? Don't forget to drop a like on this video, as the subscribing does really mean the world to me. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Now I'm going to simply hop over to my views.py, and firstly we're going to write the server-side logic to add or rather to make addresses defaults before we start working with the template and the jQuery. So I'm going to say define, then I'm just going to call this one make address underscore defaults, just like this. And we should pass in request in here. It's a parameter. And when we've done this, now we want to go ahead and grab an ID. So this ID that we're going to be grabbing is simply going to be an str. And actually, this is why I like working with the jQuery before coming over to work with the server side. And you know what, that's what I'm going to do, so you guys would better understand this. So for now, let's just pass. So with this pass keyword, we're not going to have any error. Now let's look at our backend logic. So our backend logic says that we should actually do this firstly, but I don't want to do that. I want to go ahead and work with setting up the templates. Then we're going to get back and start working with the server side. Okay, so how do we do this one now? What I'm simply going to do is I'm going to head back to here. Yeah, this is where I want to get to. Now if you refresh this, now we should see all this. So now I want to make this one to be activated and this one to be inactivated, and I don't want to always open up my admin to do that. I want to do that dynamically on the go, or rather on the list. But how do I do that? Now I'm simply going to look for the address over here, and I'm just going to say list underscore editables. And guys, I'm going to get rid of this. And what do I want to edit? I simply want to edit the I'm going to say I want to edit the address, I want to edit the status, and finally just say we want to edit the user also. It doesn't really mean. Now let's refresh this. One problem. We should get rid of the user, guys. We get rid of the user. And I think that should work. Yeah, that's working. So now if you refresh this, what do you notice? We can edit this on the go. So we can say Nigeria, haha, then go ahead and save this. Now what do you notice? It's automatically saved that. So now if we get back here and refresh this and get back to the address, now what do you notice? We should see Nigeria, haha. So this is cool, right? Yeah. Now what I could do is go ahead and make one of this to be activated. That's the status, it's activated. Now if we get back here and refresh, we shouldn't see anything. So now the logic that I simply want to do is check if one of this is ticked. So one of this is activated, then we don't want to show make default button, but we want to show this icon. Else we're going to show the make default button and not show this icon. So how do we achieve that? So we head back to the dashboard. And remember this button over here, we need to write a simple conditional statement on it. So I'm just going to open up an if tag over there, and I'm going to say if a.status. So remember when I called status, it either shows true or false. So now if a.status, which means it's true, then what we want to do is go ahead and show this I tag here, which means it's activated or it's the default one. Else, you already guessed it right, we're going to go ahead and put in this button. Now for this button, I'm just going to shift that in there to indent it perfectly well. So now let's refresh this, and hopefully you guys already have a glimpse of what's going to happen. What do you notice? The Nigeria haha is ticked, and the make default is like that. And that's because over here we ticked it. So if for any reason we take this one also, it's gonna go ahead and change up. Great. Now I even want to add a BR tag over here, so you know, it gives it some cool looking space. Open this up here. This looks great. Now how do we go ahead and make all this to be actually functional? Now we're going to add a couple of things to the I tag. I'm going to be starting with data. This one should be data. We could call it address ID. So we're trying to grab the data address ID, and what should we pass in? We should pass in the address ID, and that's going to be a.id. So if for any reason we come over here and we say a.id, then that's where you're going to see it's either going to get 1 or it's going to get 2 and so on. What do you notice? 1, 2. So this is the ID. So we want to pass in this ID that we're getting into any of these buttons over here. Pretty cool, right? Yeah. So now when we do that, we could also do the same thing for the button that we got down there, but we should do that later. Now we should go ahead and work with this one. So for this check, this one is going to be kind of tricky, so you want to follow along. I'm just going to pass in check over here. Now alongside the check, I want to append the ID. So There is a lot of ways to do this, but I feel like this is one of the best ways to do this. So just pass in check a.id, and yeah, I think that should be it. Now let's go ahead and work with the button. Okay, one more thing that I want to do is when we pass in this button, I also want to pass in this, and I'm gonna also pass in this. But we're gonna, hopefully you guys understand what we did. We passed in the two buttons and to this in there. But now for this one over here, which is the button at the top, I'm gonna make the display to be none. So I'm gonna say style, and I'm gonna say the display should be none. So I don't want to show it, but you know what I want to do? I want to go ahead and grab it also. So I'm not showing it, but I'm gonna go ahead and grab the ID. And how am I gonna do that? I'm just gonna copy this and I'm gonna put it in there. So you guys already know how this is working. I'm gonna also put this in here. Okay, so now we have that in all the places. Now one more class to go. Remember the check thing that we did on that input field? That's the same thing that we should do over here. Hopefully you guys understand. Now for the button, we need to add a couple of things. Firstly, we're gonna be starting with, okay, I think it already have classes. That's pretty cool. Now we just go ahead and top off the classes with some other classes. Now we could just say, we could call this make default address. Now you can call this whatever you want. That's what we're going to be using to grab onto the, onto this button in Ajax. Now I could just go ahead and say button, and alongside the button I'm going to pass in the AID, just like we passed in the check AID. Now I want you guys to know that we're just playing around with classes over here. I want you guys to follow the same thing, and I'm also going to pass in action underscore button action btn. Now you guys will see what this is going to do. Okay, so I think that's pretty much what we want to do. Now let's go ahead and open up our function JS. So I'm going to search for function JS. That's it, and all the way down. So you can see, guys, we actually made progress. We're writing a lot of JavaScript. Down here we're going to go ahead and say making default addresses. Okay, so making the four addresses, I want you guys to follow along with this one and see how everything is going to be working. So the first thing that we're going to do is check if we clicked on a button. So if we clicked on a button, then what do we want to do? We want to go ahead. Firstly, we're going to console log the ID to see if that actually works well. Now how do we do that? I'm going to say $, then document dot on click, and what do we want to check if we clicked on? This is it over here, this one, make default address. So I'm going to copy the make default address, make sure it's the same thing on the two buttons, and that's what you want to put down here. So that's what we are looking for when we click on it. Now when we click on it, we want to simply run a simple function. Now firstly, we're going to get the button. How do we get the button ID? And we're going to be getting the button ID using this attribute over here. Now how do we do that? I'm simply going to say, we could just say let ID be equal to, or you could call it address ID or whatever, but I'm going to stick with ID. So let ID be equal to $, then I'm going to say this dot, then in the dashboard I want to copy this, feeling kind of lazy to type it out, so I'm just going to copy that, head back to the function, or what did I just do? Control Shift T should open that up again, paste this down here, but that's not the right thing I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to get rid of this. Now I'm supposed to open up attributes firstly, and before I paste this down here. So yeah, that's it, guys. After we do this, we could also go ahead and get the current element. So I'm just gonna say this value should be equal to $this. Okay, great. Now let's go ahead and log what we are getting. So firstly, I'm gonna log ID is, then I'm simply gonna log ID, and I'm gonna say element is, then I'm gonna log this val. This underscore means the val. So now let's hard refresh this, then go ahead and so we hard refresh, we go ahead and get back to the address, and I'm gonna open up this, open up your dev tools. So now if we hit make default, get back here, what do you notice? We get the element ID is 1, but this one ain't showing nothing, and that's because the button isn't showing up there. As you can see, it's working actually the same way we expected. Now what we could do is go ahead and tick and turn that off, right? So we're gonna be able to see whatever button we're clicking on to see if it's actually getting it. So over here, I'm gonna get back to my address. This is what we have. I'm gonna hit make default. What do you notice? That's it. Make default element is 2. Now it's working perfectly well. It's just that I don't know why it keeps showing this icon thing. That doesn't make any sense because we turned it off, I think. So if a.status is true, we show this. We made the button to not show up. Else we don't want to make the icon to show up, so paste the display none thing also. Now this should work perfectly well. I'm gonna go ahead and tick one of this and save it. Hopefully you guys are following along. So now if you come over to my address, you can see that we don't have the icon. Now if we refresh and hop over to my address, you can see one should have the icon, one shouldn't, and everything still works fine, perfectly well. So I'm gonna get back to the function and let's start writing the Ajax code. So I'm gonna say $Ajax, that's it. Then I'm going to open up this. Now the first thing it's going to take is the URL where we're going to be sending all this to, and what should the URL be called? Let's just say make default address. So make default address, simple as that. Now the next thing that it's going to be needing is data. Now what data do we want to pass in? This one is going to be quite easy. We're just going to say ID. You can call that one whatever you want. Should be equal to ID. You can't call that one whatever you want. You should call it whatever you passed in here at the top, ID over here. Okay, so now when we've done that, we need to go ahead and pass in the kind of data that we are working with. Data type JSON, as simple as that. Now we write a simple success function when everything works well. So success function. And actually for this, I want to pass in a response in there, and in here we could go ahead and check if the response.boolean is true, which we haven't created yet. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and log let's just say address made default. I cannot run out of words there, so I'm going to refresh this now and hopefully it works well. So right now nothing is going to work because we don't have a URL yet, so nothing is going to work. As you can see, there's a problem. It's going to say something like page not found, I think. Yeah, we got the error right, page not found. So we should head back here and let's write the server-side logic. So just like I said before, the first thing is going to go ahead is to get a ID. So I'm going to say request.get, and there's going to be ID. So this ID that we are getting, remember from the last video when I did this request.post.get thing for the address and mobile, the way I did it, I said that you could also use request.post. That's the same way you could use request.get if you're not passing really sensitive data. So when we do request.get ID, it's pretty much getting whatever we're passing here. So if you call this burrito, now in there, what you want to pass in is burrito, as simple as that. So now when we do this, we should go ahead and get the address. So I'm going to say address dot object dot update. So we want to go ahead and update something. Now I'm going to say status, I think that's what we called it, should be equal to false. So turn all the whole status to be false. Now one more thing that I want to do is this. So I'm going to call the address. I'm going to explain what's going on, because if you don't understand, I wouldn't mind on explaining again. So I'm going to say ID should be equal to ID. Then what else? We want to go ahead and update. So I'm going to say dot update, and we want to say status should be true. Status should be true. So let me explain. Okay, finally, let's just return JSON before I explain. So return JSON response, and what do we want to pass in? I think I call that boolean, right? So I'm just gonna pass in boolean over there, and I'm gonna say true. Simple as that. So guys, let me explain what's going on. Firstly, we grab the ID. You guys already know this, which is the one that, remember when we click on this button, it shows one ID thing in the console, this ID. We grab the ID. Now, firstly, after grabbing the ID, we automatically turn all other addresses that we've got to become false. So we automatically deactivate all other addresses that we've got. We deactivate the 5 addresses or 6 or 10 that you've got. No one is going to be ticked again, and that's because we are about to take a new one. Hopefully you understand. So now after deactivating it, then we go ahead and activate only the one that the ID matched whatever we clicked here. So that's why we did address.object.filter id should be equal to id, which is the one that we're getting. Then we simply updated only that one and we return JSON response boolean. You could call this burrito or sandwich. Then we'll pass in true. So now in here in the function JS, we're simply gonna go, okay, we haven't created URL, so let's create URL. I'm just gonna say, what should we call it? Let's just say making addresses default, and I'm just gonna pass in paths and I'm gonna say make address default. Remember, whatever you called it here is what you should call it there. So I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna head back to the URL, pass this in, pass in the slash, and remember I called it make default address. I'm also gonna pass in the name and this should be make default address. As simple as that. So guys, when we've done this now, if we get back here and refresh, and as you can see, you take a close look at these two addresses. This one is default. Now if we hit this, what do you notice? It says address made default. So now guys, take note, when we refresh this, what do you notice? It switched places. So it switched from this, saying there is still, okay, yeah, actually that's it. It switched from this to this one. So let's refresh, take a close look. Now if I get back to address, now what do you notice? This one is now the one that's the default address. But I don't want to refresh my page before all this happens. I want to do that in real time. Now what do? We need to come over to the function JS and we're going to be doing that in the response over here. So we simply want to check for something, and that's going to be this. We're going to say if response.boolean is equal to true. So if response.boolean, so if response.boolean is equal to true, then we want to do something. So what is response.boolean? So whatever we passed in here is simply going to connect to our view over here that we've written, and it's going to grab whatever that we have in the return JSON response. So remember, we call this boolean. Now whatever you call this, sandwich, burrito, Shakespeare, that's what you should use and check for it. Okay, that's what you check. If Shakespeare, if response.Shakespeare is equal to true, if response.burrito is equal to true, that's what you call it in the view. Then we want to go ahead and do something. So if it's actually true, now take note, this should be a lowercase t because this is JS and not Python. Now if it's actually true, now what you want to do is if we hit this, we want to go ahead and hide this button and show this one. Then for every other addresses, we're gonna hide this one and show make default. As simple as that. Hopefully you guys understand and I didn't confuse you. So what we want to do is I'm going to open up $sign and I'm going to say dot check. So I'm going to check, and what do we want to check for? I'm going to go ahead and hide. So whatever one that have this check thing, take note from the dashboard, there is this one that have all this check thing. What did I do? I go ahead and hide them. Okay. So apart from that, we are not only hiding that, then we want to go ahead and show the make default now button. So I'm gonna say action button. I think that's what I called it. So I'm gonna get back to the dashboard. That's it over here, action btn. I'm gonna copy that, and over here I'm gonna say action btn dot show. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and do the other thing vice versa, the other way. So if this one was the default, then we're gonna go ahead and change it to make default and make the one that we clicked on to be default. I just hope I'm not confusing you guys, hopefully. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get over here, but there is one more thing that I think might be missing. Let's see. So okay, yeah, that's it, button. I think we actually have that already. So I'm gonna start off by looking for the check. This one is going to be check, but this time around we're going to append the ID. Remember that we had this ID thing over there. Remember that we had this from the dashboard, we had this thing here. So that's to identify whatever button that we're clicking on. Okay, so in the function JS, now we added the ID. Simple as that. Now what do we want to do to that one? We want to go ahead and show it. Then for the action btn, we're going to go ahead and hide it. So if you don't understand what's going on, guys, just play around with this a couple of times. You're gonna understand. And if for any reason you don't even still understand, drop a comment in the comment section below and I'll be there to help you out. So finally we hide this, and let's try refreshing to see if this works. Hopefully it doesn't work and we fix errors together. Okay, so I'm gonna refresh this one more time, get back to this address, hit make default. Okay, that's great and not great because it makes these two things to show up. and that doesn't make any sense to me. So we need to go ahead and change up all this now. Now the problem is that over here, what I was supposed to pass in was supposed to be button then ID, and that's because over here, as you can see, what I passed in was button then the ID and not action BTN and ID. So with that being said, let's go ahead and refresh this one more time, and hopefully it doesn't work, so we fix the errors together and not you doing it alone. So over here I'm gonna hit this. Okay, well, this one is working, but this one ain't working. So as you can see, it's transparent, but it's not hiding the other button. That's kind of cool because I want us to fix it together. So let's look at what the problem might be. So action BTN, you want to make sure that it's the same thing for the both of this BTN, and we get the same address. Make default address should be what we are clicking on. Okay, so we passed in make default address. Let's take a close look at this. We passed in this button, we passed in action BTN. Now I'm going to look at my function JS again. So I have this check thing over there that connects the ID. I show this and I hide this one. I hide and I show. So if response double is equal to true, dot check, which is okay, you know what? I feel like we are actually missing something. Yeah, we are missing something. So this check over here doesn't exist. It doesn't. That's because over here we need to still pass in check. Okay. So along the side, along this check, we're still gonna pass in another check. So let's refresh this and try it out one more time, and hopefully it doesn't work, so we can fix those errors together. Okay. So right now it's working. So yeah, I think that should be it. As you can see, now we can make this address as default. We could add new address on the go from over here. We'll go ahead and save address, and address added. I go back to my address. As you can see, we got 3 of them now. We hit this, all these other ones become not default. We hit this, all those other ones become default. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. So make sure to drop a like, consider subscribing, as it will really mean the world to me. And in the next video, we should go ahead and start working with, I think that should be the wish list page. So one more thing I missed over here is that we need to go ahead and show the default address on the checkout page. Yeah, that should be what we should do. So now if we come over here and hop over to the checkout page, right now you can see no addresses are showing up over here. It's only these 2 things, and that doesn't make any sense. Now we need to go ahead and change up all this. So I'm simply going to open up the checkout HTML page, and I want to search for the first name. So for the first name, this one over here, address line 1, address line 2, that's what I'm looking for. Now I'm going to collapse this, and I want to get rid of every other thing that I've got over here, guys. I'm going to get rid of all this, and let's refresh and see what we have now. So we just have this create account and the other 2 buttons, so I don't need those. I'm just going to get rid of all these things that we got over here. Okay, you know what, I'm just going to get rid of all the way to here. And for the shipping detail, I want to collapse this also, and I'm going to get rid of all this. So what I want is just this first 4 inputs that I'm still going to get rid of one of them. Okay, so now we need to write a very simple query in the checkout. So I'd want you to hop over to the view and scroll all the way back to the checkout. So from over here, we're going to scroll down. So all the way here, that's where I want to write the simple conditional statements that we want to be using. So I'm going to use a try catch, and I'm using a try except because I don't want to get errors if there are no active address. So I'm going to say try active underscore address. Before I do this, you know what, I'm just going to get rid of this for now, and I'm going to say active underscore address should be equal to, then I want to get the address dot objects dot get. And what do I want to get? I want to get the current user should be equal to request dot user, and I want to get status should be equal to true. So pay attention to what's going on now. Hopefully you guys already know that it must only be one address that would that the status would be true. 2 cannot be true. There's going to be a problem. Okay, so that's why we wrote this. Now if for any reason 2 are true, that's why we want to go ahead and say something like, hey, come on, multiple addresses cannot be true. Okay, let's say these 2 addresses are true now and we want to ship a product. Which one should we ship to? That doesn't make any sense. So multiple cannot be true. And I'm going to show you guys a practical example of that later. So now when we do this, we should go ahead and pass in this active address thing into here. So I'm gonna say active address, and I'm also gonna pass in active address just like that. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy that and get back to the checkout, and just over here in the inputs, I want to look for the value. So I'm gonna open up value and I'm gonna say active address dot address. Now let's try refreshing this page to see what we have, and hopefully it works. So we refresh. Okay, it's got the address. That's pretty cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, and actually I want to put it in this address over here and not there. But for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to say request.user.username pipe title, and for this last name, I don't know, we could just pass in the mobile there instead. So I could say mobile, and for the value, I'm just gonna say the the address, active address thing, this one over here. I'm gonna copy it and paste it over here and say dot mobile, and this final address, I don't need it, I'm just gonna get rid of it. So guys, let's try refreshing. Great. So what do you notice? Destiny is the name, this is the address, this is the mobile number they were sending to. But if for any reason the user doesn't want to use this address, now it's totally up to them. What they could simply do is hop over to their dashboard, come over to make addresses, and simply choose the one they want to make default. So let's say I want to make the Miami one default. I'm going to hit make default, and now we'll take a close look. When we refresh, what do you notice? It shows up the Miami. That's sweet. So let's say for some weird reasons multiple addresses got made default. Now there's going to be a problem when we refresh this. Okay, now it shows the multiple objects error, and it says it returned 3 instead of only 1. Now that's where try catch comes in. So we don't want to break our program if we just get one tiny baby error like that. We want to handle it. So I'm going to say try to get only the one that the status is true. But if the one that the status is true doesn't exist, don't break the program. Rather, just show a message. So I'm going to say messages dots, and I could go with warning. Then I'm going to pass in request in there, and I'm going to say something like there are multiple addresses, only one should be activated. So I'll say there are multiple addresses, comma, only one should be activated. As simple as that. That's pretty much activated. Hopefully that was spelled right. Now alongside that, we also need to go ahead and make the active address to be none, so there shouldn't be any active one for now. So guys, when we've done that, let's try refreshing this page, and what do you notice? We handled the error like a matured guy, and as you can see, it showed up over there. But I don't like the way this one looks, so I'm just gonna say activated. Okay, so now when we refresh this one more time, we should go ahead and show that there are multiple addresses, only one should be activated. Pretty fine. And as you can see, nothing shows up over here, all these are blank. So our user need to come over here and play around with something and just make only one to be you can see this was obviously a problem. So if we the admin don't mess around with this, then everything should work perfectly well. So now with this, if we refresh this, everything should work well, and we should get the address over here. So I guess that's pretty much it, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and learned something new. Do make sure to drop a like on this video, consider subscribing, and also you want to get the templates to follow along with this tutorial, check out the link in the description below. You should point it to the right direction to get the templates. Now, until the next video, mad love, peace out.